I still remember that electrifying moment as if it were seared into my very soul, the moment when my wife laid out her ultimatum with a cold finality that left no room for negotiation. "Either you change or you leave," she declared, her eyes glinting with a mix of anger and disappointment, as if my very existence was now on trial. In those first 100 heartbeats, the weight of her words crushed every hope I had held for our future together, yet amid that despair, a fierce, unyielding spark ignited within me. I realized then that I was worth more than a life defined by ultimatums and compromise, a realization that would soon compel me to choose myself, break free from the bonds of a relationship that no longer nurtured my soul, and leave her with nothing but the echo of what might have been. It all began on a seemingly ordinary evening, when the warmth of our living room was shattered by the cold tone of her ultimatum. We were seated at the dinner table, the clink of cutlery and soft hum of conversation fading into the background as she spoke. I listened in disbelief as she laid out her terms, presenting me with a choice: conform to the expectations she had built around her ideal life, or accept that our marriage was over. I felt a mixture of confusion, anger, and profound sadness, emotions so raw that they seemed to ripple through every fiber of my being. In that moment, my heart pounded with the realization that I had been living a life that was not truly mine, that I had sacrificed parts of myself in the pursuit of a partnership that had slowly eroded my individuality. For years I had prided myself on being a supportive partner, a man who put the needs and dreams of our shared life above his own. I had always believed that compromise was the foundation of love, that giving a little of oneself was necessary to build a future together. Yet as I sat there, absorbing her ultimatum, I began to see that this sacrifice had come at too high a price. The more she demanded, the more I felt that I was slowly disappearing into the background of a life that no longer belonged to me. I recalled the countless evenings I spent quietly longing for a sense of freedom, for a moment when I could be just me, without the heavy expectations that had been placed upon me. That realization hit me with an almost physical force, a surge of clarity that cut through the haze of shared memories and unspoken resentments. In the days that followed, I found myself engulfed by a tumult of emotions. At work, I went through the motions, but my mind was never truly present. Every task felt like a reminder of the ultimatum, every conversation echoed with the sound of a choice I had not yet made. I began to question every aspect of our life together. Had I compromised too much of who I was? Had I ignored the silent pleas of my own heart in my effort to please someone else? The more I reflected, the more I realized that I had lost a vital part of myself in the process. I started to feel that the foundation of our marriage, once built on love and mutual respect, had been replaced by a fragile edifice of demands and expectations that left little room for genuine happiness. One night, after a long, agonizing day filled with internal battles, I sat alone in the quiet of my study. I opened an old journal, a diary of dreams, hopes, and even doubts from years past, and began to read. Page after page, I rediscovered the ambitions and passions I had once held dear, the dreams that had seemed so vivid before they were slowly buried under the weight of compromise. With every word, I felt the stirrings of a long-forgotten part of me, an inner voice that whispered of potential, of possibilities that had been suppressed by the relentless demands of our relationship. I realized that the ultimatum, as harsh and painful as it was, had forced me to confront a truth I could no longer ignore. I had been living for someone else, and in doing so, I had neglected the person I truly was. That night, as the rain pattered softly against the window, I made a decision. I decided that I would choose myself. I would no longer allow my identity to be defined by someone else's demands or the limits of a relationship that no longer nourished my soul. I resolved to reclaim the parts of me that had been sacrificed, my dreams, my ambitions, my sense of self-worth. I began to draft a plan for my future, a roadmap that would lead me back to the person I once was and then push me further into a realm of possibilities that I had never dared to imagine. I set small, achievable goals: to reconnect with my passions, to invest in my personal growth, and to create a life where I was celebrated not for what I could give to another, but for the unique contributions I could make to the world. I spent the next few days in a state of introspection, working through my emotions with a mix of anger, sorrow, and an emerging determination. I sought solace in the company of old friends who reminded me of my strengths, and I even revisited hobbies that had once brought me joy: long walks in the park, evenings lost in books, and moments of creative writing that allowed me to articulate the complex web of feelings inside me. Each day, I started to see a glimmer of hope, a spark of resilience that told me that my worth was not contingent on the approval of anyone else. I was more than the sum of my sacrifices, more than the broken promises of a relationship that had long since lost its luster. And so, with a heart heavy yet resolute, I took my first steps toward a new beginning. I began to plan my exit from the life I once shared, a departure not marked by anger or spite, but by a quiet, determined act of self-liberation. I organized my finances, re-examined my long-term goals, and sought professional advice on how to navigate the tumultuous transition. Every meeting with a financial advisor, every consultation with a career coach, reinforced my belief that I could rebuild my future from the ground up. I realized that the end of our marriage was not a failure, but a pivotal moment of transformation, a chance to start anew and to redefine success on my own terms. That fateful evening, with its sting of betrayal and the echo of her ultimatum, became the catalyst for an inward revolution. I began to see that the journey ahead was not about revenge or proving her wrong, it was about rediscovering the person I had been all along, and then forging a path that was uniquely, unapologetically my own. I knew that the road would be long and fraught with challenges, but I also knew that I was ready. I was ready to choose myself, to embrace a future where my dreams were no longer sacrificed at the altar of someone else's expectations. I resolved that I would leave her with nothing, not as an act of cruelty, but as a final liberating assertion that my worth was beyond measure, and that the life I was meant to lead was one of passion, integrity, and endless possibility. In the days that followed that life-altering moment at the family gathering, when the gleam of my Ferrari silenced every sneer and scoff, I threw myself headlong into a journey of transformation. Every morning, I rose before the sun, the crisp dawn air whispering promises of renewal as I laced up my running shoes and hit the empty streets. Those early runs became my daily meditation, each pounding step a defiant beat against the echoes of my past, a tangible reminder that I was no longer the man they once belittled. The engine's roar, the smooth purr of my car as I drove back home, and the admiring glances I caught in passing were all subtle signals that my life was finally shifting. But beneath the surface of these outward triumphs, I began to confront a more complex internal landscape, a labyrinth of raw emotions and unresolved questions that I knew I had to navigate if I were to truly embrace this new chapter. At home, my modest apartment transformed into a sanctuary of reinvention. I cleared my cluttered desk and reassembled every memento of the past, every scribbled note and discarded plan, and I looked at them with fresh eyes. I remembered the long nights spent juggling bills and the quiet sacrifices I'd made, all the while my wife's dismissive words had haunted me like a ghost. I reread those entries in my old journal and with every word felt both the sting of earlier failures and the stirring of hope that maybe I was meant for more. I set aside the pain and began drafting a new plan for my future, one where I would invest not only in my career but in myself. I made lists of goals, personal, professional, and creative, each marking a step away from the limitations imposed by those hurtful assumptions and towards a life built on self-reliance and ambition. At work, I started channeling that internal fire into every project I undertook. I sought challenges that pushed me far beyond the comfort zone I'd grown accustomed to, volunteering for projects that tested both my technical skills and my creative vision. Late nights in the office became my proving ground. I immersed myself in detailed research, refined strategic proposals, and crafted presentations that showcased not only my financial acumen but also my innovative approach to problem solving. I recall one particularly grueling week when a critical project faced unexpected setbacks. A major client had raised concerns about our proposals, and the pressure in the boardroom was palpable. Instead of succumbing to frustration, I led my team with quiet determination. We spent hours reworking our strategy, analyzing data, and exploring alternative solutions. With every minor victory, I felt my confidence swell. The project eventually turned around, earning not just the client's trust but also accolades from colleagues who had once doubted my abilities. Those moments of triumph, though hard-won, reaffirmed that I was capable of rising above the ridicule and proving that my value was far greater than a single dismissive remark. In parallel to my professional endeavors, I committed myself to an intensive personal growth regimen. I enrolled in seminars on leadership and financial planning, determined to expand my skills and broaden my perspective. I found mentors in unexpected places, seasoned entrepreneurs and financial experts who, like me, had once been underestimated. Their insights, shared over coffee or during late-night brainstorming sessions, were transformative. They taught me that success isn't handed down by fate but built from a series of calculated risks, relentless effort, and a refusal to accept mediocrity. I began to see that my journey was not merely about proving others wrong. It was about realizing my own potential and owning it fully. This period was also marked by deep introspection. In quiet moments, when the world outside was hushed and the only sound was the soft hum of my thoughts, I sat down with my journal and poured out every raw emotion, I chronicled the bittersweet memories of that fateful dinner, the hurt of being called dumb, and the moment I pulled up in my Ferrari, a moment that had, in its dazzling defiance, sealed my transformation. My words flowed onto the page like a healing balm, each entry a declaration of independence and a commitment to never again let the opinions of others dictate my self-worth. I began to see that every setback had been a lesson, every painful moment a stepping stone to the person I was becoming. I reached out, too, to reconnect with old friends and forge new relationships that celebrated authenticity and ambition. I attended small gatherings, industry events, and casual meetups where I shared my journey with unguarded honesty. I discovered that many people had experienced similar slights, those moments when someone's words or actions threatened to define their future. In sharing my story, I found a community of like-minded individuals who understood that the only true measure of success is the courage to rise after a fall. Their support and shared experiences gave me a sense of belonging that I had long thought lost, and I began to realize that my future wasn't just about personal achievement, it was also about inspiring others to find their strength amid adversity. Meanwhile, the tangible rewards of my efforts began to materialize. My renewed focus at work led to several lucrative projects, and my enhanced financial acumen allowed me to make smart investments that steadily grew my portfolio. I began to see that the success I had once only dreamed about was within reach, one calculated decision at a time. Every email confirming a new client, every nod of approval from a respected colleague, and every spike in my investment returns was a quiet, personal triumph. They were not just numbers on a screen, they were the building blocks of a new reality, a reality where I no longer had to live in the shadow of dismissive comments and unfounded assumptions. The process of transformation was not without its moments of darkness, though. There were days when the ghost of that humiliating evening crept back into my thoughts, a flash of a memory, a lingering scent, a stray remark in passing. In those moments, the pain would surge like a tidal wave, threatening to pull me back into self-doubt. But I had learned to face those emotions head-on. I would retreat to my quiet sanctuary, read through my journal, and remind myself of every hard-won victory that had brought me to this point. I realized that each instance of pain had sharpened my resolve, each tear had watered the seeds of growth, and every dismissive remark was nothing more than the fuel that propelled me toward this rebirth. I began to understand that true strength is not the absence of pain, but the determination to transform that pain into something meaningful. As weeks turned into months, my newfound independence and resilience began to redefine not only my work but my entire perspective on life. I was no longer the man who had been limited by someone else's narrow vision. I had become a man who recognized his own worth, a man who knew that every challenge was an opportunity to innovate and that every setback was a chance to rebuild. My days were filled with purpose, and I learned to savor both the quiet victories and the exhilarating moments of breakthrough. The more I grew, the more I realized that my journey was a continuous process of self-discovery, one that was both painful and beautiful. In this phase, I also explored creative outlets that allowed me to express the tumult of my emotions in new, constructive ways. I took up photography, capturing the interplay of light and shadow in the city's bustling streets, a metaphor for my own journey from darkness to brilliance. I even tried my hand at painting, each brushstroke a vivid expression of the inner landscapes I had traversed. These creative pursuits did more than just fill the hours. They became vital expressions of the transformation occurring within me, enabling me to see beauty in every fragment of my past, no matter how shattered. Networking events and entrepreneurial gatherings further expanded my horizon. I met individuals who had also faced rejection and turned it into a catalyst for success. Their stories resonated with mine, and in those interactions, I found that the world was full of people who refused to let adversity define them. I forged new connections, exchanged ideas, and even found mentors who shared their wisdom on turning personal hardship into professional triumph. Every conversation was a reminder that my journey was not solitary, that there was a vast community of resilient souls all working to rebuild and reimagine their futures. One crisp autumn evening, I attended a high-profile conference where I had the opportunity to present my new vision. Standing on a stage before an audience of industry experts, I recounted the challenges of overcoming betrayal and reclaiming my lost dreams. I spoke of the long, solitary runs, the countless hours in front of a computer, and the moments of despair that eventually gave way to relentless perseverance. As I finished, the applause was thunderous, a resounding affirmation that I had not only transformed my life but had also inspired others to believe in their own potential. That moment, illuminated by the bright stage lights and the fervor of a captivated audience, was the definitive turning point, a declaration that my journey from despair to triumph was complete, at least for that chapter of my life. By the time I emerged from that conference, I was no longer haunted by the ghost of my wife's disparaging remarks. Instead, I carried with me the quiet confidence of a man who had fought through the darkest moments and emerged into the light. I had learned to embrace every challenge, to see every setback as an opportunity for growth, and to celebrate even the smallest victories along the way. The journey had been grueling and fraught with emotional turmoil, but each step had carved out a new, stronger version of myself, one that was unafraid to claim his worth and to shape his own destiny. I still remember the day when it all came together, a day when the echo of that fateful moment, when my wife once dismissed me as broke, was replaced by the vibrant affirmation of my success. It was a brisk, clear morning, and I found myself standing at the edge of a busy city park, watching as the first light of dawn bathed the skyline in soft gold. I felt an overwhelming surge of gratitude and pride, a quiet, unyielding joy that came from knowing I had transformed every bitter whisper of the past into a future filled with endless possibility. In that moment, the roar of my Ferrari, which had once served as my declaration of defiance at a family dinner, now symbolized everything I had fought for. I was not defined by the scorn of others, but by my own journey, a journey from humiliation to triumph that had reshaped my entire identity. Over the months and years that followed the unforgettable evening when I pulled up in that gleaming Ferrari, my life had evolved in ways I once thought impossible. I had devoted countless hours to rebuilding not only my financial status but also the inner strength and self-worth that had been threatened by her dismissive words. Every morning, I embraced the solitude of early runs, letting the rhythmic pounding of my feet on the pavement wash away remnants of past doubts. Every late night in the office, every challenging project that I tackled with relentless determination, reaffirmed that I was in complete control of my destiny. I had learned that the true measure of success isn't determined by the opinions of others. It is defined by your ability to rise from adversity and create a life that is authentically your own. Looking back, I recall the overwhelming mix of emotions that accompanied my transformation. There were moments when the bitterness of being called broke and dumb still threatened to seep into my thoughts. A stray comment from a passing acquaintance, a fleeting glimpse of an old photograph, even a subtle tone in a conversation that hinted at disbelief. Yet, with each new success, each small victory at work and in my personal life, those memories faded into the background. I began to view them not as scars that marked my failure, but as badges of honor, a testament to the resilience that propelled me forward. My Ferrari, a symbol once meant to defy their assumptions, had become a beacon of the relentless effort and sacrifice it took to rewrite my story. It was a tangible reminder that the life I had always envisioned was finally within reach. My career had reached new heights in the intervening years. I expanded my ventures, made savvy investments, and even took on a leadership role that allowed me to mentor others. I was invited to speak at industry conferences and share my experiences of overcoming betrayal and transforming my financial future. Each opportunity to present my journey was not just a personal vindication. It was a chance to inspire countless others who had been underestimated or dismissed. I learned that the power of a well-told story is that it can light the path for those still lost in darkness. Every handshake, every nod of approval from peers, and every congratulatory message reaffirmed that I had forged my destiny through persistence, creativity, and a refusal to accept mediocrity. Yet, amidst these achievements, the personal transformation was equally profound. I reconnected with who I truly was, the man I had been before the weight of others' expectations had dimmed my inner light. I rekindled passions that had long lain dormant. I spent quiet evenings strumming my guitar, letting the music become a language of healing. I reread my favorite books and discovered new ones that expanded my perspective. I even began exploring creative writing, chronicling the twists and turns of my journey in a way that was raw and unapologetic. These creative pursuits became the sanctuary for my soul, offering both solace and a way to communicate the lessons I had learned along the way. I also learned to appreciate the importance of genuine relationships. I re-established connections with old friends, those who remembered me not as a partner defined by my wife's diminishing words, but as an individual with dreams and untapped potential. New friendships blossomed with people who valued authenticity and who shared a passion for growth and innovation. In these circles, I found the encouragement that spurred me to push past my own limits. We celebrated each other's victories, no matter how small, and supported one another through setbacks. These relationships reminded me that my journey was not one of isolation, but a shared voyage of rediscovery and empowerment. Their support was like a gentle refrain that underscored the truth: I was enough and my worth was inherent. Throughout it all, I maintained a rigorous routine that balanced personal rejuvenation with professional ambition. My days were segmented into purposeful intervals. Early morning runs that cleared my mind, midday meetings that fueled my ambition, and quiet evenings spent in reflective solitude. I created a vision board that captured my goals. Images of success, quotes about resilience, snapshots of dreams I intended to achieve. Every glance at that board was a reminder of the journey I had undertaken, the obstacles overcome, and the future I was determined to build. I learned that the path to self-empowerment is not linear but rather a winding road of ups and downs, a process where each setback becomes a setup for a greater comeback. There were moments when I felt the weight of all my efforts, when the cumulative stress of long work hours, personal introspection, and the relentless pursuit of my dreams threatened to overwhelm me. In those moments, I would retreat to a quiet corner of my favorite park, sitting on a weathered bench as the leaves rustled gently in the wind. I would close my eyes, breathe deeply, and allow the tranquility of nature to soothe my restless mind. It was in those still moments that I truly understood the meaning of inner strength, that no matter how hard the battle, the human spirit has an incredible capacity to heal and to rise again. Each pause in that serene environment was a meditation on my journey, a moment of gratitude for the resilience I had cultivated and the wisdom that now guided my every step. My transformation eventually reached a point where the public acknowledgement of my success became inevitable. I was invited to appear on local news segments, speak at community events, and share my story at entrepreneurial forums. The narrative was always the same. A man once dismissed and belittled had risen from the ashes of rejection to build a thriving, independent life. I spoke with quiet conviction about the challenges I had faced, the bitterness of being called broke and dumb, the painful realization that someone I had trusted had undermined my dreams, and the relentless determination that had driven me to reclaim my self-worth. Each time I spoke, I saw the light of recognition in the eyes of my audience, a silent acknowledgement that my journey was not just my own, but a universal testament to the power of resilience and reinvention. Even as I embraced these public accolades, I never lost sight of the lessons etched into my soul. The road I had traveled was lined with both triumphs and tears, and each memory was a reminder that the challenges I had faced were not failures, but essential parts of my evolution. I began to mentor others who were struggling with similar hardships, offering guidance and sharing the strategies that had helped me rebuild my life. It was an act of paying forward the wisdom I had gained, a commitment to ensuring that no one else would feel as alone or as powerless as I once had. As my business ventures continued to flourish and my personal life grew richer with meaningful connections, I reached a moment of serene clarity. I realized that the public mockery and the betrayal that had once seemed insurmountable were now but distant echoes, a part of a past that had paved the way for my rebirth. I had learned that true strength comes from within, that self-worth is not dictated by the opinions of others but is built through perseverance, self-love, and the courage to chase one's dreams regardless of the obstacles. Standing at the crossroads of a future brimming with possibility, I took a deep breath and embraced the person I had become. My heart, once heavy with the weight of rejection, now beat with a steady rhythm of hope and empowerment. I had transformed the pain of betrayal into the fuel for my success, and every step forward was a testament to the unyielding power of the human spirit. I realized that by choosing to walk away from a relationship that diminished me, I had opened the door to a life where my dreams, my ambitions, and my inherent worth were celebrated every day. In that final, reflective moment, I looked back on the journey with immense gratitude. I recalled the long, arduous nights filled with tears and self-doubt, the moments of quiet determination on lonely streets, and the relentless pursuit of a dream that I never gave up on. I understood that every ending is merely the start of a new chapter, a chapter that I now wrote with passion, integrity, and an unshakable belief in my own potential. My story, once defined by the cruelty of dismissal, had evolved into a celebration of life's endless possibilities. I had learned that even in the face of overwhelming adversity, you can rise, you can rebuild, and you can redefine your destiny. This is my story, a journey from heartbreak to empowerment, from betrayal to a future built on my own terms. I now stand as a living testament to the truth that no one can dictate your worth except you. My past, with all its scars and sorrows, has become the bedrock of a future filled with promise, innovation, and a deep, abiding sense of self-love. And as I step boldly into the unknown, I carry with me the quiet, unyielding hope that every challenge is an opportunity to rise again, stronger, wiser, and more resilient than ever before.